Okay, you're down as co-host, so you can do your slides yourself, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me get them open. Let me make sure I have them open here.
All right, well then let's go ahead and get started then. 6:32. And some other folks are dribbling in, and we'll see how it goes. So we'll call the meeting to order at 6:32. And so welcome everyone. It is May. I have to also recognize that for those who aren't necessarily familiar, this is actually the 69th anniversary of African Liberation Day. And African Liberation Day was started I was born out of struggle in recognition of the support that people were giving to the liberation struggles in Africa, specifically Southern Africa. And it has remained a way for people to remain tied to the continent and the current struggles at any particular time. And it's very interesting how it's become more problematic for some people to acknowledge or to engage because it hasn't seen as been as direct. People say, well, as long as there was fighting going on, I knew who the enemy was. But now that it's an economic struggle, it's hard to tell who the enemy is. Well, it's the same enemy, same struggle, same fight. And I think there are still a number of ongoing civil wars. There's just no other way to talk about it. If we look particularly in terms of East Africa, the Horn of Africa, and we see also some lingering issues in Southern Africa that we need to be aware of and learn as much as we can. So wanted to just acknowledge that today is a day that is known throughout the world as one in which we acknowledge the struggles of people of African descent around the world, and particularly within this is also the middle of the UN decade for the recognition of people of African descent. So having said that, let's move now to the minutes. They were developed and posted on the website. Did anyone, hope everyone had an opportunity to review them. Any questions or comments on the minutes? I've got something in my eye here. Corrections for the minutes. Okay, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes? Anyone?
Yeah, I make the motion to adopt the minutes.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Minutes have passed. Thank you. They've been adopted. All right. I'd like at this time to welcome our guest speaker for the month. It's very interesting when we look around the community and we often talk about, well, who's doing something, and people just aren't visible and we just don't know what's happening. And we have to recognize that there are a number of people in our midst who are not only doing something, but they're doing something quietly and loudly. They're doing something with force, but also with clarity. And okay, I understand you can't hear me?
No, we can hear you.
You hear? Okay. With force and with clarity and with vision. And I think today, if we don't have vision, it's windmills in the dark. And so Autumn Glover, I shouldn't be so familiar, has been associated with Ohio State, but also has been responsible most recently for the development of PACT, the Partnership for Achieving Community Transformation. And I know that it's also been a problematic, at times, the relationship of PACT with the community has been problematic, but it has certainly eased over time. And we thought that this would be a good opportunity this month to hear from Autumn in terms of what PACT is doing, what's happening in our community, and for you to have an opportunity to share your comments and questions with her as well, so she would have a sense of what we're doing, specifically within Franklin Park, but certainly within the broader community as well. So I'll turn it over now to Autumn Glover, an executive vice president and president of the Partnership for Achieving Community Transformation. So, Ms.
Thank
Glover.
you so much. And familiar, I'm very honored to be a friend of yours and to work on so many different things with you. I will say, please, feel free to ask me questions about anything that I'm not mentioning. I thought, the initiative that would be great for you all to hear about is the work that we've been doing around closing the digital divide and helping our neighbors and all of us in an equitable way get access to the internet for life. And so I want to share with you just a little bit about that work and how it came to be. It was really inspired through COVID, but it's really blossomed into larger work where I will share with you that the Near East Side is the case study for our entire county. And so this work is certainly one of my favorite lines, and my husband always tells me I'm corny for saying it. It's a Lil Wayne rap lyric, but it's real G's moving silence like lasagna. And I think that's so pertinent to doing work that's meaningful. It's not looking for the award or the celebration per se, but just really doing the work that matters. And I'm really grateful to be able to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to hop into a few slides, and then I welcome discussion with all of you about this and anything else that you're curious about. So let me get this up. Okay, make sure this is, there we go. All right, so, really when we started this work in COVID, we created the name for us on the Near East Side. So our strategy, as we named it, is called Connected Communities. And our work is really focused in this specific strategy of PACT on closing the digital divide. So you all are very familiar with the Near East Side. When we launched this work back in 2010, we needed to define the area that we would focus on for impact. Our work is very focused north of Broad, but as you all know, these boundaries are not our lived experience. There are people who live on both sides of Broad Street that visit the hospital, visit businesses on Mount Vernon. I always use the example of our lived experiences aren't these hard boundaries that practitioners create for us, because grandma might live in Franklin Park and auntie who watches after school is in Milo Grogan. And so we really do appreciate the interconnectedness of our communities, especially those that are directly connected to each other. But our work, as we describe it, is very focused on these 800 acres, which is a very large planning area. So typically when people do place-based work like this, they pick an area as small as Wyland Park. We, bit off a whole chunk, recognizing that the strength of neighborhoods like Franklin Park really could be leveraged to propel the neighborhood north of Broad, which if you have been in the neighborhood for a while, 10 years ago and even now, there certainly were patterns of intergenerational poverty that really persisted, and blight, and just missing teeth along the corridors. But what I will say is I'm not a native of Columbus, and when I was invited to help lead this work, I am a planner by training. I'm an urban planner by training. I started pulling up the assets and I was scratching my head. This neighborhood is wedged in between downtown Columbus and Bexley, which is our wealthiest inner ring suburb. And I just couldn't figure out why this community was struggling. But what I did know and quickly learned from many of our community members is that it's a community that is both home to tons of assets. So the Columbus Urban League, the Lincoln Theater, the King dozens of churches that have long storied histories, East High School, and the list goes on, as well as the people and the culture and the legacy. And so we were not starting from ground zero by any stretch of the imagination, which I think really makes such a large planning area easy to work on. But I will note that this work is big. And so we did not start this work thinking within 2 years this neighborhood would be transformed. So this is the planning area that we are typically talking about when I talk about the work that we're doing. Includes Poindexter Village and several other public housing sites, tons of different types of housing stock, and the like. So you guys know the area, so I won't belabor the details of that. Let me see if I can advance my slide. So the first thing we did was start with community engagement. Our work is really focused on community engagement. When we were invited to do this work, we had 3 partners: the city, the housing authority, and the university. And all 3 of those large institutions could have very easily said, we're going to do this here, this there, this there. But we took an approach where we said, this is a community that has felt unheard, and that they really want to make sure that whatever the future is prescribed by the community. And so we honored that. We spent about 2 years engaging the community in subcommittees and advisory committee. I recognized some names when I logged in. Some of you participated in some of that, but what we knew was that the communication had to be intentional and two-way. This was not easy. I love talking with neighbors about this because you guys remember, nationally, I tell people, Google Poindexter Village. You will see we had some painful moments in engaging with the community, but I think there's been so much beauty in the honesty that we've had in really facing our hardest challenges. And really what has really propelled our work is this commitment to two-way engagement. So even today, 10 years later, there's nothing that we do that we don't start with community engagement. Every single thing that we do, we start there. And I will tell you, even the best ideas are made even better. And I would say propelled towards excellence when we include the community. So kudos to all of you who show up and participate civically. It really does matter and make the difference. So what did we come up with? After 2 years, we actually published a master plan for the neighborhood. It's called the Blueprint for Community Investment. If you have never seen it or never heard about this, I'm happy to share where you can find it on the web, or even get you a copy of it. But this was the culmination of our engagement work. Again, on the slide, you see we engaged more than 2,000 people. Our planning area at the time of us starting was just under 7,000. That's a pretty significant engagement rate. People came out to more than 50 public events. And we continue to mold and shape our strategy as we heard from people. I will say one of the most beautiful things for me as someone who's been able to go through this work for the last 10 years is the moments where people didn't believe that we were going to do what we said we were going to do, and then we did it. And I think that trust in that relationship, just taking our time and building that relationship. But I teach as well in the Glenn College at OSU, and I always tell my students, if you don't know, just say, I don't know. That's been such a powerful tool in this community engagement work. But our stakeholders, neighbors like you, really told us that these were the priorities. If we were going to make a community that would be sustainable for the next 10, 20, 30 years, it would be walkable and connected. It would be safe and vibrant. It would honor the strong heritage and diversity of the community. It would ensure that there was affordable quality housing. And importantly, the people who live here would be educated, healthy, and employed. And so this blueprint that we authored is not a typical master planning document. It is an implementation plan. So in the blueprint, it says on Taylor Avenue, this number of units. We want these types of programs for youth. And we were very intentional about costing those things out so that we could immediately pursue funding to do those. So the initial onset of our work, Ohio State committed $10 million. We're still spending that money. I take great pride in the fact that we don't spend one of those dollars without matching it to another. Our work has been able to leverage a $30 million Choice Neighborhoods grant. So the Poindexter Village that we saw 10 years ago is now replaced with mixed income housing. In addition, more than $225 million has been invested in the community. And that's really because of our residents. I mean, we certainly can take credit of being that community quarterback, but the engagement of our community to really make and co-design a plan for the future is really what got us there. So these are pictures from some of our meetings. You may recognize yourselves or some of your neighbors and some of the pictures that I'll share. So we launched the plan. Originally, we were just a partnership. And when we launched the plan, we realized we had something here. There wasn't a neighborhood nonprofit or CDC that we could say, you're going to run this program after we launch the plan. And so PACT became a standalone nonprofit. So we are a nonprofit organization. We operate our own signature programs. So here are a few of them on these slides. We have an exterior home repair grant program where we give homeowners support to repair the exteriors of their home. And that was really designed because the community told us, as the neighborhood changes, we want to feel like we're a part of that change. And so we select the home. So I always tell people, we pick you, you can't pick us. So every year, people get a letter in the mail. A few residents who are fortunate to get these grants get a letter in the mail, and we invite them. We actually just kicked off this year's program last week. And every year since we launched it, I love people come to the info meeting and they're like, is this real? You're really giving us money? Absolutely no strings attached. We actually hire contractors directly. All of our contractors are Black and minority owned vendors, really sewing into the community directly. But we provide whatever exterior home repairs, with about an average of $12,000 per home, where we make those. So it's anything from sidewalks to porches to windows. We'll paint a house, whatever it is, the homeowner creates a wish list, and then our contractors walk the site, we price it out, and then we complete the work. So it's been a phenomenal program, and it's been absolutely my pleasure to see that come to fruition. We also operate a Neighborhood Leadership Academy program. Ours is really focused on equity. So last year, we flipped the curriculum upside down and really wanted to have hard conversations about when a neighborhood changes, how does civic engagement change? And how do we make sure that there's equity in that discussion? We didn't launch a new cohort in December as we traditionally do because of COVID. So we are looking forward to bringing that back. We have a partnership with Columbus City Schools called the Health Sciences Academy. So this is the entire East High School feeder pattern, really infused with health sciences curriculum, and really raising the profile of our schools. We know a lot of people, whether or not they have children, choose where they're going to live by the schools. And so we want our neighborhood to be an education destination as it once was. East High School definitely has a legacy worth being proud of. And finally, I would say the last program I'll highlight, and there are other things, Ms. Julia Lynn probably will share with you all about Growing and Growth Collective and the Venture Suite. There are many things that we've launched in the community, but our Employee Homeownership Incentive is another program that we launched in 2017. We give $8,000 of down payment assistance to OSU employees who purchase a home in the neighborhood. Has to be their primary residence. They have to live there for at least 5 years. And since 2017, 36 people have purchased a home in the neighborhood. That's been just under $300,000 of grants, but $8 million of new real estate investment in the neighborhood, which is huge. And what that looks like is not a bunch of doctors and dentists and our highest level faculty, but it's everybody across the enterprise. So we track internally, we don't share it publicly because it's private information, but we do keep track of who are these buyers. And so we have people who work in our cafeterias and help keep our offices clean, and office administrators, and everybody in between has really decided to call the Near East Side home. The other thing too is they live throughout the neighborhood. So I have the fortune of approving every single one of these, and I look at it and I'm like, whoa, somebody bought a house on Atchison, then somebody bought one on Woodland, and somebody bought one on Broad Street. And that's a really good sign that the perception of our neighborhood has improved as such that people are really willing and desire to be on the Near East Side. We probably get a weekly inquiry about this program. So fast forward 2010 or 2020, Lord help me. In March of 2020, we were planning a series of workforce development events for some underemployed residents in the community. So we had about 50 people who we know needed a job. We partnered with Jewish Family Services to plan this event that was going to happen in April. And so April is Minority Health Month, if you didn't know that. And so we were going with the theme around financial well-being, and being employed was our health theme for last April. So we spent all of the first quarter of 2020 planning this event series that will culminate in people having live job interviews. And so we worked really hard with Jewish Family Services. In March, this COVID-19 thing got really serious. And so we tried to pivot. We said, okay, we're gonna make this digital, because we literally know people who need jobs and we know folks who want to hire them. And we were unable to make that happen. People didn't have internet in their home. They didn't own their own computer. At the height of the pandemic, especially at the beginning when none of us knew what was to come, we couldn't find people who would loan equipment. And so we were just stuck. And I would say, you know, having been involved in this work for 10 years and leading that community engagement process, as a leader, I felt really conflicted. How did I miss this? How have we never talked about internet access and computers? And you all may not recall this question on your census, but there is a census question that asks you, do you have access to the internet? It's a yes or no question. And sometimes people say yes, but they mean they go to the library or they use the internet at work. And so what we did were two things. One, I knew that our census data was wrong. And the wisdom of knowing that was that I've worked in this neighborhood for 10 years. So when I pulled up the map, I knew that there were areas of our community that were the poorest in our community, and there was no way that they were the most connected. And so looking at this data, this publicly accessible data, knowing it was wrong, I made the decision that we would hire people in the community. We designed a survey, we would put them in PPE, and we would send them out door to door. And we would ask them to survey our residents. Why don't you have the internet? What's keeping you from it? Do you think you need it? And remember, you know, this last summer, you know, we all were like, how long is this pandemic gonna last? You know, what are our barriers? And so we pursued with very short notice fundraising with the Columbus Foundation. We also were able to secure funding from the city and the county through their combined CARES Act fund to one, pay people to do these surveys, but then also follow up on them. So what we learned from the survey is that people didn't have the internet because they couldn't afford it. It was too expensive. It's not that they didn't think they needed it, but the cost of the internet was too affordable or was unaffordable. And then the low income plans were very slow internet. You know, again, the height of 2020, suddenly we're doing Zoom civic meetings and we're using the internet for everything, educating our kids and telehealth appointments, and the internet's effectiveness suddenly became a question we really needed to understand. The other thing that we learned is that a lot of households were relying on loaned equipment. So they were borrowing devices from a school, but they didn't own their own device. And I believe that everybody deserves the dignity of owning their own device. And so we pitched to the Resilience Fund that we would buy 500 devices and give them away. And we did that. All of this was work that we did very rapidly. This is between March and November of last year. At the same time, a coalition was forming locally, but we were really focused on our neighborhood. And I think what set us apart and has positioned us really as being a case study for the community is we stayed focused on our neighborhood itself. We didn't try to solve everybody's problems. We really wanted to focus on what the situation was on the Near East Side. And so our goals are pretty clear. There's just 3 of them. We want every household on the Near East Side to have affordable and effective internet. Affordable means, according to our survey, is $20 or less a month. Effective means it's fast enough and effective for what you need to do with it. So you can sit on a Zoom meeting and a kid or another family member can be in another room on a Zoom meeting and nobody's moving too slow or losing connection. Devices, we believe every household deserves a device that they own. And then finally, digital literacy, that how did we get to the year 2020 and everybody didn't have internet and devices also meant that some people may not know what to do with them. And we wanted to honor the fact that people were entering this new world, whatever it will be post-pandemic, as we continue to battle the pandemic. We wanted to make sure people in our community had resources that were meaningful to them. And so we just set out doing some work and exploring that. And I'll tell you all a little bit about that, and then I'll let you guys ask me questions. So one, we had already done our own survey, but we needed technical experts to tell us, well, why can't people find affordable internet? And so the Columbus Foundation actually funded a study of our neighborhood to really figure out, well, what's happening here? I will tell you, Franklin County has more than enough internet infrastructure. There are plenty of providers in the marketplace, but they're not all having to compete. And that lack of competition is why the prices aren't dropping. Now, I will tell you, since we published this work in September, a lot of them have changed some of their plans. There are a few more affordable options, but still very rarely would you see high speed, effective internet at $20 a month. And so here's some of the data that we found, and I'm happy to share these slides, but we took it to the next level and said, okay, so if we were gonna solve this service problem, what sort of options might we put in place? And so We did put together an opportunity, and you can barely see this on this slide, I apologize for that, but if you go to cbuswifi.com, let me go back, we are piloting one of the technologies that our feasibility study told us might work. So we are giving away internet. We will be giving away internet in the neighborhood for the rest of the year for free. It's a Wi-Fi technology, it's a new provider. The city funded it and Smart Columbus funded it. And so they were really prescriptive, unfortunately, much to my chagrin, that the goal is to help people who have kids in their household. But this provider, which I cannot tell you who it is yet until it's publicly announced, is coming to the marketplace anyway. And so this internet that they're providing, as long as the people who participate in the pilot tell us it works great, it's effective, will provide the same internet to those households for $15 in a month. What that looks like is disrupting the market, right? So suddenly there is somebody who can give you good internet for $15, then that's going to shift what AT&T or Spectrum or Bresco or whoever the case may be. And so we're really testing the market. Can we deliver a more affordable internet in our neighborhood? When this is successful and when it is effective, the city is already looking at how they apply exactly what I'm describing into other neighborhoods. We should be looking at every neighborhood and saying, how do we make the internet more affordable and effective? How do we make sure people have devices that they need? So we've distributed brand new devices, but we do also, as a part of our larger county work, which I'll talk about in a second, have the ability to give refurbished equipment as well. And I can talk a little bit about that too if you all are curious. And then finally, we're partnering with people who already do this work. So Huntington is helping us design a series of financial safety courses online for older adults. We're working with the library and so many other providers to really answer some of the questions we got back in the survey and things we continue to hear that people want to learn more about. We did a program, we piloted a program with the university where we're starting to get impressions of telehealth and why or why not. So we can give people the information. We're not trying to, steer people one way or the other, but we certainly want people in our community to understand what the masses understand as well and be able to make informed decisions for themselves and their families. So this work does not happen alone. It's not just us all on our own. Although we did everything I described, we were working on before our larger county effort was really formalized. So last spring, as schools started to close, the leadership of the Columbus Foundation and Columbus Metropolitan Library convened a group of leaders all across the city and said, what are we going to do to get kids online? And they invited me to that, and PACT actually hosted a number of learning extension centers in the neighborhood with some of our churches. And the schools were the schools. I think Columbus City Schools was well equipped. Certainly they needed the partnership, but I'm gonna be honest, I would say it on the calls, and I think Doug Kryler today won't admit this, but he looked at me like, is this woman crazy? I said, I don't care about if kids can get online for school. I care about if families can get online for their lives. We were all in the house. And so the Franklin County Digital Equity Coalition was formed. It's more than 30 organizations really focused on these areas. And the goal is that what I just talked about for our Near East Side community becomes what we do across the county. And so we really are thinking about how do we ensure that our K-12 babies are taken care of, but frankly, that every household that needs the internet has it and has devices and digital skills. So this is big work. We are working through some advocacy at the state and the federal level. You all may have heard about a new program that launched called the Emergency Broadband Benefit. It's short-term approved. And so what we're really lobbying is there just should always be funding to help people be able to get access to the internet and devices and digital skills. Our city and our county leadership are actually working together to think about how they could have a permanent fund to help support these efforts. The Columbus Foundation was the first one to step up. They launched a $1 million digital divide fund to help fund projects and communities around this topic. So this really is digital equity, closely aligns to racial equity. If you saw the maps in our community, you would see it very clearly. And as we think about people advancing to the next phase of our society, there's no way people can do more without having that connectivity to the internet. And I think prior to COVID, we allowed some of our community members to have less access, and that is inequitable. And so we're really focused on this, and I'm happy to talk a lot about that. I will say one way we are advancing this work is we're doing research, and we're serving as a thought leader. So these are a few articles that I've written, panels that I've been on about this work, really showcasing the Near East Side as a case study for this work in a place that people should be investing in. This work and these published works is really how Huntington came and said, Autumn, how can we help? And all of these other organizations. And we're just so grateful to be positioned as this case study, but importantly, that we're helping people. And so as we think about kind of what we do next, we're very focused now on the affordable internet. So really working on that and having permanent public funding that helps this. But then also developing digital skills materials that can be used over and over and people can leverage them. We're working on a project actually right now where we're going to hire young people in the community to serve as digital navigators over the summer. And so really trying to leverage everyone in our community. I always say everybody has a role to play in this work, including our young people. And so, you know, that's really the gist of it. I hope that was helpful. I will stop sharing because I can't see if you all type questions, but please feel free to ask me anything about anything. I saw somebody. Oh,
Yeah.
Kim.
Hi, Ms. Glover. First of all, let me thank you for being here tonight and express my gratitude for the work that you're doing. I would like to qualify a couple things, such as when you speak of the broader Near East area, I was always in the belief that your focus was in the 43203 neighborhood and that the citizens of Franklin Park weren't actually included in most of the things that you were doing, such as down payment assistance, the computers and things like that. Do you see a broadening of your scope to the community that you're speaking to right now?
So I will say our homeownership incentive will always be north of Broad. That's work that is funded. So it will always be 03 and a little bit of slices of 05 that we represent. And it's because of the way our donor advised it. If we had another donor come to us and say, we want to fund homeownership incentives in a broader area, we would do that just because we have the capacity to do it. But I will say, part of the reason why our implementation in terms of program investments are north of Broad, because that's where the greatest need is. I did note at the beginning of our talk that that's a hard line on a map, but it's really not a hard line in the way we live our lives. So, you know, we see kids in East High School that live on the other side of Broad Street. And so the programming that we fund in the schools, which is, we've given more than $1 million to our neighborhood schools, is not only for kids who live in 03. So there are some pieces of our work that touches broader, but when you talk about real estate investment, the data doesn't show that as a gap right now. And so that wasn't identified as an area where we would focus. Our internet, our device access, in terms of us giving free devices, was focused north of Broad. And again, that was based on the data and based on our donors. So the city and the county told us, we want you to focus here, and not because there wasn't need in other neighborhoods, but because they were funding other providers to do that access. So we had many instances. We gave away 500 devices. We probably received about half of that of people who weren't eligible, but we pointed everybody to a resource where they could get a device. So, and we do that with everything that we do. You wouldn't, if you sat in our office and heard the calls we get on a daily basis, we're always helping people get towards what they need. So hopefully that answers your question, Kim.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions or comments?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, Tamika.
Autumn, thank you. Great information and great work that's taking place in on the Near East Side, specifically, I guess it's King Lincoln, that area. My question is, how do you navigate? You talked a lot about the changing community, how the community's changing, and you discussed how the employee incentive program brings newer people into the neighborhood to buy homes, which is great. And that's something that's happening in our neighborhood as well. How do you navigate the community dynamics between these two groups? You know, the long-term residents have been there for multiple decades and many years, and then the newer residents.
So that is an excellent question, Tamika. I will tell you two things. So one, and I literally am working on a project with MORPC. So our Regional Planning Commission actually just published some work around housing strategy for the region. And they only studied 2 of our census tracts. And so one, I'm pushing them to study all of them on the Near East Side. I will tell you, not just PACT's focused area, but Franklin Park and what is actually the full Near East Side all the way up to Livingston Avenue is one of the few, I would say, areas in the community that are directly adjacent to downtown that are still moderately affordable. So if you think about our region, Village is not moderately affordable. You know, Franklinton and East Franklinton is becoming not affordable. Victorian Village and Short North are not affordable. And so we do need to protect that. This is something we talk about a lot in our office. And I will tell you there's 2 tools that we consider, and then I'll tell you about the data that I'm trying to get MORPC to produce for us. So the first one is if you own it and you control it, you can control what happens to it, right? North of Broad, the largest landholder is actually the Housing Authority. So we have permanent affordable housing as our primary land use. Literally, the large, in that 800 acres that I showed, Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority owns most of it. When we started our work in 2010, our neighborhood was largely vacant. So even with 36 new households, the data that we see today about the neighborhood change is not showing displacement. That doesn't mean that couldn't happen. So, you know, the fear of gentrification is real, but I think the fear of gentrification is really about the speed of change. Is it happening too fast? Are we able to keep up and keep a balance? North of Broad, we have almost a permanent balance of low income affordable housing to home ownership that's creeping up. I think I shared with you all a moment ago, I approve every single home ownership incentive that comes through. And since 2017, in just 4 years, the home sales blow my mind. I mean, I'm at the point where I look up the listing and I'm like, what? Somebody's paying this for a house there? And so we see that change very clearly, which has its pros and its cons, right? The good thing is that people are coming into our community. They're filling vacant spots. And that's really what it looks like in the data, is that we had 36 less residents, not that somebody else had to leave for those 36 to come. So I want to make that very clear because there's still tons of vacancy, unfortunately, in our neighborhood. But land control is one way. So PACT does own real estate. We started buying blighted properties. Gosh, I think we closed on our first property in 2015. And our goal is not that we're going to try to make money off of these, but that we use them as stabilizing tools. So what I think is actually missing, we got that lower income. We have kind of higher income homes starting to come on the market and sell quickly. It's that middle piece. And I always call it the little middle income wedge, where there's someone who may be single or a new graduate or, you know, anybody you can think of that is making $50,000 or less, they should be able to afford a house too. And there's not a lot of housing stock for them yet. And so that middle piece is where we're working through different solutions with the land trust and the land banks. And we've done a pilot of this, 10 houses on Mount Vernon, and had some great success, but it's a lot of, frankly, red tape to help sell those houses and keep them stable. So we have RFP'd land and, you know, given it to developers to build out a couple things. We're going to do more of that. We've been pretty strategic and thoughtful about what we want to do and analyzing that, but we're going to use the data to tell us where the market gap actually is. I'm very serious about not just what I think, what I see. I want to see it in the data, and I want to see it really raw. In terms of the neighborhood change, I will tell you, and you guys probably participate in these or probably host them yourselves. In September of 2019, we hosted 3 big table conversations. So the Columbus Foundation does the big table event every couple years or so. And we hosted 3 of those where we wanted to get at, you know, what is that dialogue that you talk about, Tamika? And that's so real. And it's racial too, if we're being honest. It's not just old and new residents, it's often Black or other underrepresented minorities and white, and what does that tension look like? And we have to be thoughtful about that, because we're here to support the community, but we're not going to teach people how to be neighbors. We can create the environment for conversation to happen, and I do think that's an important role for us. It's why we changed the theme of our Neighborhood Leadership Academy, to be honest with you. So we're working with the Kerwin Institute and an organization called Race Forward to help broker those discussions. But at the end of the day, it takes things like this: neighbors talking to each other, getting to know each other. I last week introduced two neighbors north of Broad who didn't know each other, but they were having a code enforcement fight. About what? The older neighbor keeps her dog on her porch. She has a huge dog. And he's kind of scary, but he's old as dirt, and you know, he's not gonna hurt anybody. But the other neighbor kept calling code for some reason and saying she didn't feel safe walking down the street. And you know, those sorts of things, I mean, you all probably have seen flag wars living in Franklin Park. They start contributing to the deterioration of the relationship in our community. So it's definitely something we're aware of. We're studying the data around the housing change, but it's a good time, right? I think we're in a good place as a community in terms of the change, but as it speeds up, that's where we get nervous. So that's why I'm like, okay, we need you to study all of our census tracts, not just the ones that are interesting to you. I want to know what's happening in all of them. So owning it is one tool. The other tool is policy. And I think, you know, our county auditor is aware of this. Cheryl Brooks, who I'm sure you all may have had before, and Michael Centeno, we have talked with them a lot. If you're going to pilot something, pilot it on the Near East Side. This is a community most at risk because of the consistent affordability that still persists. So I would say we're an advocate and a lobbyist in this space, but we don't own the solutions. We have to co-develop them as neighbors. But I think the other thing too is, you know, check your neighbors, right? You know, if you want to pick up the phone and call code or call the police, do a gut check and say, why is this making me uncomfortable? Especially if you're a newer neighbor. And I hope that doesn't offend someone, but I think that's where we actually have challenges, is when we just don't make the effort to know who we're living next to. So I'll get off that soapbox.
Miss Glover.
Thank you.
Miss Glover.
Okay. Really, time for really one more brief question,
Yeah,
brief
Miss-
question and brief answer, okay?
Got it.
Miss Glover,
everything-
I'm Miss Glover. Hi, how are you doing tonight? You talked about the home repair. Does your organization take in the senior citizens or the retired piece? As you know, cost to rehab housing has gone through the roof. And a lot of people who are elderly or are retired cannot afford to stay in their homes. Are you doing anything with that piece right now?
Yeah, so our exterior home repairs, we don't know the individuals until we pick them. So we pick them based on where they're located. So we have traditionally picked like 10 houses in a row. And there are always older adults. I will tell you, it just happens to be this year, 5 of 10 of them are retired folks who they need that extra support. One of the guys, actually, I'll tell you guys, on his application said, I need everything done. We asked him to rank what his most important things are. I will share with you all, though, too, there are funding opportunities through the City of Columbus for older adults for exterior home repair. So if you weren't selected, because our program is 100% fundraising. I'm hustling all the time, begging people for money to do this. And it's really hard to fund because you're just giving, I really feel like I'm Publisher Clearinghouse just giving away money. If I had infinite dollars, you know, we would start to prioritize segments of the population. But for now, we literally just pick a corridor. So the City of Columbus has programming dollars, and I think their grants are up to $5,000. Don't quote me on that, but if you call us, we'll help you figure it out. The other thing too is that there are volunteers from Broad Street Presbyterian Church who are retired, and they donate time and materials to do repairs for especially seniors, but other residents in the community. It's not something they broadcast widely, but that is a resource. And I would encourage you, if you have a need and you just really are in a pinch, call Tracy Ross at Broad Street Presbyterian Church. We've partnered and done a couple things together. It's absolutely our hope that everyone who wants to stay here can stay here, and that you don't have to move away because you can't maintain your home. So hopefully that answers your question and was quick enough.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think given the comments that have come through from the in the chat, this was a very informative presentation, and I'm sure that there's some people who will be calling the office and or checking the website, but definitely will follow up with you. And in fact, in some of the other comments, I know that various ones of us on the executive committee will also follow up and see if we can get that information back to our leaders. So you are more than welcome to stay on. Let me say that also we, the Franklin Park Civic Association extends a honorary membership to our speakers. So you'll be receiving that from us as well. And you're certainly welcome to come back at any time. Okay?
Thank you so much.
So let's move into our NEAC representation. I did see Roy earlier.
I'm here. So, moving right into that, there's to comment on. So, the first one is that we have elections coming right up this Friday. There are elections and we have an open seat. So I didn't know, and that's for District 4. So I don't know whether anyone, I'm really uninformed about whether anyone is running, but I'm pointing that out, that there'll be elections on
Okay,
Friday.
Roy, for clarification, isn't this Friday a committee meeting, the elections committee meeting, in which they'll discuss the procedure for elections to be held in June?
I'm sorry, it's an elections meeting. I'm so sorry. You're quite right about that. It's a meeting about that, but we have elections coming up in June, and that's really where I said the wrong thing. I apologize. But so I don't know whether anyone is planning to run for the available seat for the district. So that's certainly out there. If somebody wants to get in, put their name in for that. And but we do have this meeting on Friday, and that's at 6 o'clock, special meeting of NEAC community. Certainly can join in on that. The second thing I wanted I guess I think there are 2 seats actually open in the district rather than 1. But in any case, if I don't know if Franklin Park Civic Association wants to have its own meeting to talk about whether there are community members who might run for that election or not, or So anyway, I just put that out there in case that's something that the Civic Association wants to do. The second thing I wanted to mention is that NEAC at its last general meeting, after a long consideration, approved the concept of creating a community engagement committee. And Kate Curry D'Souza, who is, I believe, attending our meeting tonight, it's her idea to try to create a community-wide forum within focused on really the whole NEAC jurisdiction as a way for NEAC to communicate directly with the community. So it isn't a district-wide meeting. That's the third thing I want to talk about. But the second thing is, regardless of the district-wide meetings, Kate's idea was to create a committee that would create a forum for periodic meetings between NEAC as an entity and the whole Near East Side community. So that's something that I believe will be fleshed out more over time about exactly how that would be handled. But I wanted to make sure everyone was aware that that new structure has been created for communication between the community and the Near East Side or the Near East Area Commission. And then the third thing is that within District 4, which obviously includes Franklin Park and parts of South of Maine, District 4 is going to have a meeting with the community, and that's coming up on June the 2nd, Wednesday evening, and this is a meeting that is required by the bylaws of NEAC, and so Kathleen Bailey and myself kind of collaborated on trying to plan that meeting. So we have a couple of topics, and then we're going to open it up to community input about what interests you, what do you want to talk about as a district. And that could be anything, but the two topics that Kathleen and I discussed, one of them was talking about commercial development on Main Street, and we're going to have a guest speaker come in and talk about what is it going to take to get commercial development to, you know, expand on Main Street. And the other topic is one I've suggested, which has to do with short-term rentals, such as Airbnbs, but not limited to them. We have a lot of them in the community, and some of them have really been problematic, and I have a particular interest in that, and I'm wondering whether there is a broader interest in trying to, you know, create some lobbying, frankly, or advocacy around that issue with City Council. City Council had talked about doing something about that right before the pandemic, and I've not heard a word about it since. And it remains a problem. And so I want to put it on the table as a district issue just to talk about it. And then it could be whatever else folks want to talk about. So in addition, obviously, we've had a couple of zonings that have come up that are in the Franklin Park neighborhood. A couple of properties on Fair Avenue, actually in the same vicinity, that people want to build on vacant lots. Those haven't been highly controversial, but we have had a couple of those, and they've been approved to move ahead. One of them was to put a double where only a single family house is currently zoned, but there are other multifamily properties not too far away. And the other one is to take an existing converted house that's a double and create a third unit up in the attic, and that wasn't highly controversial either. But other than that, we haven't had any real hot issues at NEAC that directly affect Franklin Park. And so I would mention that you can see Kate has sent a chat message to everyone on the meeting about the Community Engagement Committee. And we do need folks to, participate on it. Oh, what's new was on that message, she's saying that a meeting has been set up for June the 3rd. I did not know about that until reading it on the chat just now. So
June the 3rd for what?
For a meeting to, I believe, related to this Community Engagement Committee. So what happened at NEAC was that we did not amend the bylaws. There was we were quite a bit short of consensus on that. So the idea was to create a trial run and give an opportunity for a year to launch this kind of conversation between NEAC and the community. And we need to have 6 commissioners to participate. I volunteered. Kate, I'm sure, would be one, but we need other commissioners to form that committee.
Okay, all right. Autumn went a bit long, but we have, again, a full agenda. And I wanted just ask a question because you said there was an open seat. It was my understanding that there was more than that. All the seats are actually up. That all the seats are in District 4 are to be voted on. Is that correct?
You know, that was not my impression. I could be misinformed. I for example, was elected in December.
Right. Sorry. So you're okay. But other than you, Kathleen's seat and Annette's seat, aren't they both being voted on?
That may very well be the case. I didn't concern myself with their reelection, so I guess I'm not 100% sure of that. I apologize.
Well, all right, because I think that in terms of the district, we're looking at perhaps more than one person, and that's why I wanted to just clarify. Yes, I think that people who are interested should take time to definitely attend the meeting on Friday, and perhaps we'll have clarification on the process. I am particularly concerned given, once again, how it's structured. There are 2 seats, right? There are 2 district seats up for election. So it's possible that, there may be 2 people who are interested in running for who live in different areas, who may be interested in one of these District 4 seats. But the bottom line, unfortunately, Jay, this is what I was speaking to, that even though there was all that confusion in December, even though people, were very clear on how to avoid that kind of confusion, here we are 6 months later in the same place. And I think that it is really unfortunate that there will be a meeting called in June. There'll be a meeting called Friday to explain the election process for an election within 2 or 3 weeks, because it's going to be sometime in June. And I would like to, well, let me just stop there because I'm going to just, any other questions for Roy, please, quickly? Any other concerns on the election? Remember, he can't do anything in terms of elections. He's presented the information. The community engagement, Kate shared with us that there's a meeting of the June 3rd. So if you're interested in attending that, you can do that. And then there'll be this district meeting on June 2nd, the day before, that is being hosted by the district representatives to look at commercial development, short-term rentals, and anything else that you may be interested in. Okay, all right then. Then thank you very much, Roy. And can we go on to our committee meetings, our committee reports, and hear from the treasurer?
Yes, there was a couple expenses that we haven't normally had. I think, as you guys know, we're meeting more on Zoom and we're recording these meetings, so we needed some additional storage, so we purchased that. And then to get the message out, we purchased some yard signs and some postcards, so we have expenses for that. And then, as you know, we're working on our website, so we have some additional expenses with that related to some artwork and the membership. Or the subscription rather. So our ending balance for the month, or current balance rather, is $66,0911.
And I think we also had expenses connected to our photographer. Wasn't that this month?
It was, yeah.
Yes, because we had activities for the Earth Day and the weekends, thereafter. So we'll be putting those up. I think we shared some of those with DEAC as well, as long as they didn't have people in them, which I found very interesting. Any questions for Nick?
Yes, please.
Yes.
What is our balance?
660911.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Anything else? All right, so we will accept his report. And then we have activities and events.
Yes, I'll try to keep it quick. We are in the committee and I are currently in the process of planning a few events. We'll have more details to release within the next month. So we'll be sending that information out via email and on our social media, our Facebook and IG. Please stay connected to us on Facebook. Additionally, we have our next walking club meetup on Saturday, June 5th at 10 a.m. We are meeting at the Horseshoe on Franklin Park South. The specific address, all the information will be uploaded to Facebook.
Okay, and then my experience was I was in a totally different business meeting, and somebody said, "Oh yes, my husband was in the Franklin Park walk, and he had a fantastic time." So I was like, getting out there, Tamika? Okay.
Yes, we had a small group in May, but it was it was great. We were really able to get to know one another and develop have a great conversation and discussion amongst each other. So we're hoping to have more people come out in June. So it's warm out now. If you want to get a bit of walking or exercise in, come meet up with us. We'll be out June 5th, which is a Saturday, not this Saturday, but Saturday after.
Okay, thank you. Public and media relations.
I have a few updates. Well, I have reached out to people regarding doing the elder spotlight. So there are a few of you on the call who you've received emails from me regarding being interviewed. If I haven't reached out to you and you are interested, please email me or email Julia Lynn, and we will make sure that we send you the information, and we'll set up a time to interview you and take some pictures of you. It's getting warm. People are getting vaccinated. It's a great time for us to do some porch interviews and some porch pictures and to really get to know you, more about your house, and just more about the neighborhood. It's a way for us to get to know each other and continue to build community. So please, if I've emailed you, I will be reaching out again within the next week. So please email me back. Or if you know any neighbors who have been in the neighborhood for a while, please send their information. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kim, health and safety.
Hi, guys. As we go from spring to summer and things are heating up, I would like to remind everyone back to the community gardens issue of watering, because we haven't had rain for over 10 days and everything that was planted is dying if it did not get watered. Remember, if we grow, we eat. So that's a big deal. Also, as a safety concern, I have reached out to Community Action, the Health Department, and Central Community House in order. It's my goal to have at least 50 fans available for us to distribute to people in need, as it looks like it's going to be a scorcher this year.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody has any other thoughts or ideas, what we've been doing at the Linwood Garden is several of us have been planning plots together so that we can take communal responsibility for watering and weeding and stuff like that. And then we share our harvest together. So that's also a thought. And we do have a couple more plots left.
Okay. Also, in terms of the community gardens, as you have a sense by now, people look at me and for some reason think she would, she's a perfect person to give this to. And so yesterday I picked up 2 lawnmowers, 1 weed whacker, 1 pole axe cutter, 1 hedge trimmer, and something else. There were 6 items. They're all electric and they're almost all close to brand new. Okay, and so I have them, and I put out some feelers to a couple of folk, and basically I need a proposal. You know me, I want proposals. I want to know how can we best use these tools for our community. without me being involved, because I'm telling you, I'm not standing at my garage waiting for somebody to come pick up a lawnmower. But, you know, I'm not even joking about that. So understand, though, that we do have these tools. One suggestion was that we start a lawn service training, so that we could actually teach the youth how to use the tools to create business, you know, and then that does work ethic and all kinds of things, you know, et cetera. A couple of other organizations just said, look, we're doing this anyway. We'd like to just take the tools. A couple of other people said, no, you know, we need it for our own. So like the community gardens, if they were here, then somebody could borrow the lawnmower, borrow the weed whacker, and it could be used to keep our community up. Please, I need a very specific, very clear proposal. And then, you know, and I see things are coming through and people want a tool lending library. That's fine. I cannot be responsible. I will hold on to them for now until we have clarity, and then I will turn them over. But it has to be something that's been thought through, and then we can move from there. Okay, so keep that in mind, and you know, fairly quickly, I want to get rid of these things or move them out of where they are, because they're taking up space, as you can imagine. All right. The next is development. Do we have Will on? Do we have someone else in Will's? Yeah, I was going to say.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully everybody saw the very nice update that was in the Columbus Dispatch. We never know when those things are going to drop, but
Right.
The headline was probably most appreciated, where the developer took our advice and named the project the Trolley District near Franklin Park. And so we made it in the headline, and we hope to follow that in follow-up discussions, which we've requested with the developer. They haven't been scheduled yet, but we're also going to be drilling down on the traffic and signage issues that have been raised by association members in a meeting with the city transportation planning engineer. And as soon as that gets scheduled, I will let people know who are interested in attending. I've reached out to people who have been involved in some of those questions in the past, but if anyone else is interested in discussing potential traffic, signage, those kinds of things, please let me know, and we will include you in what will be a Zoom call on that topic. That's it.
Good. Thank you. Any questions for Will? Okay, well, stay on and let's move to old business. Update on the nonprofit status.
Okay, so we have formed a Wednesday working group. You know, unlike Tamika's group, we're not going to go out and walk, but we are going to be trying to put pen to paper on tackling this nonprofit status. There are three major components. One is rewriting the bylaws, which have to be written in accordance with IRS guidelines that talk about all aspects of the organization being organized to educate the clients and the community that this 501c3 operates in. And we're going to be getting some guidance from someone at the Columbus Foundation who has helped another organization here in Columbus in working through that process. Secondly, we've asked all our committees to develop a budget, you know, a 12-month budget, because this is the other main part that the IRS wants to know. You know, are you talking about little money or large money? You know, how much money you're spending, and what types of things that you can be spending that on. So again, if anyone else wants to join Brian Curtis, myself, and hopefully Patrick Vissel, who indicated interest earlier, we'll be working on that every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. That's all I have on that. Sorry.
Okay, great. There was a comment from Kate that Woodland Park is also going through this issue.
Exactly.
And could they work along with us? And I think, yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing that that we should be doing, and the Community Engagement Committee would facilitate. Where there are resources, we should be sharing so that there's no, you know, we're not competing with each other. We're building the community as a whole. So I would definitely support, you know, any kind of reach out, engagement, discussion, facilitation, etc. Any other questions or comments for Will? Do we have a timeline for any of this, Will?
I'm hoping that by the end of summer that we will have something into IRS. You know, their time frame for getting back to us is kind of anybody's guess. I don't know what their staffing patterns are, what their priorities are, but.
Right. Okay, great. All right, then new business, shedding activity.
I'm sorry? Oh, shredding.
The shedding,
Shredding. I thought you were asking us to do something. Okay, is Ernestine on the call? Ernestine Washington? Ernestine, for those of you who don't know Ernestine, she's a neighbor, lives nearby. I won't give, but she is a long-term community volunteer, actively involved in the AARP, and she has offered to help us see if we can partner with AARP on doing a community shredding event. I talked to a couple of shredding companies, and they pointed out something that you know from your recycling experience, that it is extremely hard to get drivers, and they are not interested in putting their drivers out in harm's way by participating in community events. So they're not having any community-based shredding events this year. So it looks like what we will be looking for is planning something for 2022, which I'm hoping our activities committee will take the lead on, and to maybe work with other neighborhood organizations who can help us secure a large space that cars can drive through and get some volume, which it takes to really make these drives successful, as well as a little bit of funding, because I think the projected cost for putting on an event is about $1,400 for a 4-hour session with a recycler.
Okay, any questions for Will?
I have a comment about that. My parents are downsizing, and we were looking into some shredding stuff. And I think you can actually get a bin that is securely locked through Office Max. I would have to do a little research, but you can set it up maybe in a place that's kind of central. And then I believe that they come and pick it up. I'll have to look into it. I don't know all the specifics, but if it doesn't work where people can go to one place, we might be able to get those bins that are secured. I don't know, I don't know, but that's something to consider. And I'm happy to look into it for you, Will, if you'd like.
So
this is Miriam, by the way.
Okay, Miriam, this is Will. So I looked at that, and true, places like Office Max do offer that service for individuals. What we're talking about here is a community event where people can come together and talk to each other and see each other and realize that they have a shared common goal.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks. I didn't know if it would be for more than one person or not. So yeah, I just remember we were looking into it, but that's cool. Thanks, Will.
Yeah. But you can still help out with the activity once we get going, okay? Or as in developing it.
Happy to do so.
Attaway, that's what we like. Thank you, Miriam.
Right. Any other questions for Will? Comments on the activity proposed? Okay. Then can we move into other announcements? Brian, I know you got something, huh?
Go ahead.
I know what. I didn't see if anyone else had anything before I start.
Oh. Go ahead. Do you think?
So, the Asian Festival, which normally takes place in our own backyard, is online this year, and that's Saturday and Sunday, and there will be also a special on Channel 6 and Fox 28 this weekend. And I'm going to put the website for the Asian Festival in the chat. Also, CODA possibly bringing back late night service starting in September among their changes. And see what else is going on. Commissioner Lowenstein mentioned the District 4 meeting, but District 2 has a great meeting on June 14th, which is also my birthday. Michael Stenziano is their speaker. And at our last in-person meeting that we had a profile on the Tuskegee Airmen, and there's going to be a display on the Tuskegee Airmen at Westerville's Memorial Day flag event on Cleveland Avenue this weekend. They're honoring minorities in the military and the Tuskegee Airmen. So if you want to make the drive up to the burbs, that's going to be up for the whole Memorial Day weekend, Friday to Monday. And I think that's everything. And oh yeah, COSI reopens next Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Bertley mentioned that after he spoke to us. But go support our neighbor and our member, Dr. B.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Any questions for Brian?
No. Did you want to talk about tomorrow's meeting, Julia?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
This is Richard. Growing Hearts and Hands is working on art in the garden, and mark your calendars for June 26th for that event. Now, you don't need to be an artist. You can bring your children. You don't need to know anything about art, but we're going to do some art in the garden that day. That's on a Saturday. Now, the rain date for that event is going to be July 10th. If it rains on the 26th, because we do need the rain, then on the 10th of July, we will come and do art in the garden. Now, tentatively, and this piece, is going to take some planning. We would like to do a garden festival on July 17th. It's in the early stage of planning. It'll take a lot of planning, but so I'll keep you informed to that event. But definitely, we're working on art in the garden for the 26th of June.
And question, is that just your garden, or are the other gardens involved?
Well, right now it's just our garden. Now we would like to, and that piece for the 17th will be for all the gardens coming together. Right now we have not nailed down anything, so it's still up in the air.
Okay, good. Thank you. We're looking forward to that. We will definitely come out and support that. Will, did you have something?
We're going to post a notice on our Facebook page reminding people of the public hearing tomorrow evening at, I think it might be 5:30, on the city council redistricting process. It will be over WebEx, and the posting that we receive from the city has a link where you can sign on and listen. If you're not able to join the stream live tomorrow, the city does keep copies of such meetings and hearings where you can go back and listen to the proceedings.
Right. And okay, any questions or comments for Will? Any other announcements? All right, let me, yeah, go ahead.
Just, there was, in the wider social media community, there's always discussion about porch pirates. I think that's kind of here to stay, unfortunately. But about firecrackers, and it appears that the firecracker season is upon us. It's almost June. And I know last year there was a lot of consternation about how late and how long these will go on. But if anybody has any suggestions on, how to address these kind of things, especially when they kind of cross the line in terms of firing fireworks onto personal property, send that information to our mailbox, FP Civic, and we'll see. But I know last year it felt like we were in a war zone with all the overhead and ground fireworks that were being set up. And it makes it hard on people, families with children, people with pets, just all of us. So. Right.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Let me add a couple then. The Otena yard sale, June 12th, right? Yeah, so if you haven't signed up, interested in signing up, or just be prepared to walk around and see what your neighbors are getting rid of. But if you do participate, and I've noticed that a number of organizations have really been, concerned, think carefully about what you put out. It's interesting. I know people say one person's trash is another's treasure, but some people are really just doing trash. So really think carefully about what you're putting out and how you're putting it out. And also, if you're making donations to other organizations, really, at a minimum, please ensure that what you're donating is clean and fit condition. And if you wouldn't want it, think about why somebody else would want it. So just be very, clear about the condition of your donations. This whole vaccine issue, it's really interesting. The fully vaccinated can go without a mask, but who knows that somebody's actually fully vaccinated as opposed to somebody who just doesn't want to get the vaccination. So do just continue to exercise caution for yourself, your family, your friends, and we'll continue to get through this. But I personally, I still have difficulty understanding the thousands of people in these auditoriums and whatnot, but it is what it is. Locally, and with more particular focus, the Brownsville Growers Market is hosting a plant swap, this Thursday from 3 to 6. And that is if you've got some seeds or you've got some starter plants and your eyes are bigger than your stomach, if your eyes are bigger than your garden and you don't want to throw out these seedlings, just bring them by, drop them off and see who might want them and see what you can pick up. So nothing to sell, it's all to share, but it's also a chance to talk and learn from each other about the plants that we've chosen and that they're growing, in our backyards. And then Juneteenth is celebrated nationally on June 17th, which is a Thursday. And on that date, there will be the inauguration of the Julia Lynn Walker Learning Center at the King Arts Complex. And that's at 1 p.m. You're welcome to attend that. And then on Saturday, Maroon Arts Group will be hosting a Juneteenth festival. And you can check their website for the actual activities and events. I think that is it between all of us. Although I hear we have a special treat. So for those, let us get a motion to adjourn. But for those who would like to stay on the call, we have a slideshow of our activity, of the activities that we were engaged in over Earth Day. And it was April 22nd, but it extended, that weekend and into the next week. So I do encourage everyone to stay on and just see what your neighbors are doing to contribute to stabilize and improve the community through the development of the community gardens. But at this point, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll see you at our next meeting in June, but please attend these other meetings as we go along. All right, here's our slideshow. Oh, we know who that is.
Yeah, the drawer at Morrison Hill is actually a beehive, if you don't know.
All right, thank you very much, folks. And as Julian mentioned that we'll be adding these, peppering them into our website as we go along, and we use them for other things like the NEAC website.
Yeah, I was thinking a few of those would be great for that.
Yeah, we send them about 10 pictures.
Good.
We also, our photographer, we could not resist, a little off topic, taking pictures of some of the unique architecture in Franklin Park neighborhood. A lot of times people associate unique architecture with German Village, but we developed a little photo exhibit called The Porches of Franklin Park. And I think that's a unique aspect of Franklin Park, is that we have a lot of porches where people can see their neighbors and meet their neighbors. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but then maybe we could look at that, actually having that as kind of a project, and maybe let's look at funding from the Arts Council.
I love it.
Yeah, and some others. Okay, so with that, have a good one, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you very much for attending and participating wholeheartedly.
Yes, always time. Next meeting, June 22nd.
Right. Thank you.
Brian.
29th to 22nd.